come up in your feed.
We're live.
Okay. Morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Money Never Sleeps. We have two legends on today, Di and Jake Fried. We're going to kick it off today. Jake's going to just give us a little intro. And as you guys know, every week we're making innovations here in the garage. So I finally got my mic. I got to figure out how to get it off camera. But for today, at least you get a little richer taste of my voice, and we'll kick it off. So Jake, welcome. It's nothing but an honor. I've been a huge fan of your work for some time and had the pleasure of DMing with you some and listening to you on a bunch of spaces. And you're such a wonderful and amazing artist and guy. We're really excited to have you. What I'd love is real simple, if you want, however, in a way that makes you comfortable, just maybe like a quick 2 seconds on your background, how you ended up in NFTs and what kind of excites you in NFTs.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Di. It's great to see you. It's impossible to do this in 2 seconds, but really long story
Take
short.
as long as you want. Take as long as you want.
I'm going to make it as short as possible, and we can talk more. I've been an artist my whole life. I started as a painter. I went to school for painting and studied a lot and went to school for art history. And I always had ambitions to be just what we call now like a traditional artist, but just a real artist who had his own body work and made a living from it somehow. I ended up teaching at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston and becoming a full-time professor. But through those years,
do you have a master's or a PhD in art or anything?
I don't.
How were you able to get that?
I only have an undergrad degree in art history. Actually, I ended up dropping out of art school and never even got a degree in art. That's a longer story too. But yeah, wow.
I jokingly call you the professor in our correspondence because I love that.
Being an artist, we're already getting off topic, but like being an artist,
there is no off topic, brother.
Being an artist is such an impossible ambition when you're a teenager, right? Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? How do I do this? How do I navigate it? And I hated school. I just wanted to make my own work, and I really felt like I was being held back, and I was really impatient as a young person to just get out there and make my own work. I never felt like I had enough time or privacy to just do what I wanted, and I was like, just give me space and like let me do stuff. And so I never pursued like getting a master's or really took the time. I sometimes regret that. But I went on this whole independent path, and then just through like the quality of my work and winning a lot of awards and having a lot of success, schools want to hire you based on, it's like it's more legitimate to hire like a successful independent animator than someone who got a master's in independent animation who's never done anything. So I kind of I did it the hard way, but I think it's pretty cool, right? So I always felt like, how the hell am I ever going to make a living? No one knows what the hell I'm, like, how do I tell people what I'm trying to do here? And then just, to wake up and be like in my 30s, have a great family and be a full-time professor. It's like, fucking did it. It's really cool.
And that sorry, Doug, go ahead.
No, I'm just I'm laughing hard over here because like I like when you said that you went to school for art, I was actually a little like shocked by it because like honestly, there's a freedom to the things that you create that like where like I haven't taken this. I got like a C in a high school art class. That's the only art class I've ever taken. Otherwise, it's just been bludgeoning through and just fucking figuring it out. I think similar to you, and I think that like there's a real freedom and brutality to the way that you create that I feel like is like void of all of those like psychotic criticisms and stuff, or at least from what I've heard from art school. So do you think that that's like accurate as well? Like I don't know.
I do. I mean, I talk about this a lot. Like for me, art making, my personal practice is like so spiritual and like so much bigger than like art school.
Yeah,
studying art.
Dude.
It's like a much bigger thing. So art school and academics always felt like very formalized and very structured in a way that didn't feel totally authentic to me. And I kind of like part of my journey, I think, as a creative person, and I encourage like a lot of my students. I'm going to mention my students a lot because I talk about art and like being an artist to students a lot, and that's where I kind of like realize what I actually think about these things. But I always
don't know. You don't know if you know something until you have to teach it.
Yeah, but you kind of got to learn everything to forget it, right? Like, it's good to get as many perspectives as possible and get your hands on and experience as many things. But like, art making is like good art comes from like an authentic human being who's doing it from like their soul, right? I don't know why you put it, but it's like if it doesn't feel like
1,000% agree. And you can tell in the work. I honestly think like this is something as a collector you can tell if this is a work that was authentically created from the soul, and I 100% agree. And it's also interesting. Most of our guests who are artists have the same trajectory. Hated school, found it brutal. What's super cool and unique is you've now ended up taking that and becoming a professor and making it probably a better experience for those students.
I think so. I just got my student evaluations back from last semester.
Oh, it's
Oh
like
man,
99th percentile.
That's nice.
Dude, I want to fucking sign up.
Yeah, that's really true because I'm really down to earth with them, and I'm like, school doesn't fucking matter ultimately. It's like what you get out of it and like the connections you make. And I do think I have an authentic story to tell them. But yeah, it's also I give them like I tell them too. It's like it's hard to put your soul into an assignment every week. Like I also believe in like just hard work and work ethic and all that. And like a lot of what I'm teaching them is just relentless art making. Like go so much harder than you ever thought you could for like 4 years in a row, and like you will just break your brain and you'll just like completely like elevate yourself. And so much of it is just showing up and working really hard. But like, yeah, it's hard to be like put your soul into your work every week for homework, and that the academic exercises and making. This is what I tell my students: making homework is different than making like art, like your art.
Yeah.
Like let's make a separation there. And that's I think when I was in art school, I wish my professors made that more clear to me, because doing assignments, I was always trying to be like super creative, really like just push the boundaries, and it was like I was killing myself because it wasn't just like what I wanted to make. So yeah, long story, like I studied painting and like did all kinds of stuff, but really where I came back to and what I've been pursuing as an artist for the last 15, 20 years is just like that raw, like I never went to art school, like just making art from my soul. And I'm really attracted to just like outsider artists, or these people who are artists who make really good body work, but like they're not going about their life like thinking about their career as an artist. They're like, it's like they're doing it for spiritual reasons or for their own mental health, or
they have to. That's what I found. If you take like Die or like they kind of like relate to that. You have to produce this. Like you can't live with not. What's are you like Die? Like, you know, one of the things I love about Die is I feel like he's produces so much to get it out of him. Are you every day grinding out work? And can you tell us a little bit? I listened once that you use like whiteout even in some of your process. Maybe you could go over either of those, and Die if you have anything to add. Of course, I'd love to hear from you, because I feel like you're a guy who that's exactly how you do art. Is that a fair characterization? Like you have to do it. It's authentic from the soul. It's unstructured in a unique way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jake, I thought you said something really interesting too about like the relentless push, because that feeds into it. I feel like that relentless push, if you're doing it out of like the necessity of like a chore, it obviously just fucking sucks. It's the worst thing ever. Like that's why homework blows so bad. But if that relentlessness is pushing you to like more or less just find freedom in that onslaught, and like have it more or less become second nature, where you're just creating and you're thinking about things in an entirely different realm. Like, you know, you're in an elevator with somebody that looks a little bit peculiar, and you can build an entire piece, an entire story off of that person who just like had a momentary reaction with that, because your brain is like constantly in that realm of like just fucking going nuts. So I don't know. I thought that was really an elegant way in terms of relentlessness on that front. But yeah,
100%. I see that in your work, like your work ethic and like that pursuit definitely comes through. And I have the same thing. Yeah, to put it bluntly, like it's all I do. I kind of get up. I'm in my office right now. Like I'm working. I have family life and stuff, but like drawing is when I don't have to do anything else, that's what I'm doing. It's like everything gets in the way of drawing.
Same, dude. Yeah.
And I just said it's like how I talk, it's how I think, it's how I breathe. It's not even like second, it is like who I am. There's two elements of that. One is, I think it's really good for my work and my soul and like my mental health, that like it's just like what I do, and I do it every day, and it's a muscle, and it keeps me like grounded, and it's like all that stupid shit. It keeps my mind busy and my hands busy, and it's like no matter what I think the meaning of life is or what I'm supposed to do today, if I just draw essentially or work on my art, like I know I'm moving forward. It's going to be okay. It makes me feel like I'm progressing and doing something.
Yeah,
that's kind of the feeling I need. I just have also this like, I don't know where it comes from, but like just like I feel like I'm running out of time.
Yeah, same, dude.
And the older I get,
Yeah.
the worse it gets. But it's like, God damn it,
Trust me, I
man.
know the feeling.
There's not enough time. It's going so fast.
Yeah.
Every other human's experiencing the same like kind of human experiences as us, but like I can
Mhm.
tell there's something going on with me where it feels really rushed.
Mhm.
Like you
And
want to put out more work. You
that I
need to
haven't
be
done enough,
producing
and
this.
it's
You haven't
gonna
done
be
enough.
too late. And like, oh my God, like, and I feel really
Yeah.
lousy when I don't draw. Again, it's like not because I didn't do my homework. It's like who is holding me accountable? I don't know, but like it's like I'm a bad person or something.
Dude,
Then I heard a
that's
photographer talking about this the other day, which I really like, where they're like, I learned to see the world through being a photographer because when you're carrying a camera around, you're always just like seeing things and you're framing things and
Mhm.
like you're activated as an artist. And then even when you don't have your camera on you, you kind of learn to see the world like you're like a camera. And I think that's really similar to how I feel as an artist. I'm in a much more abstract way, but like I see everyday life as like in my drawing, it's all interrelated. It's all part of each other. So it's like what's happening in my life and how I'm feeling physically and what I'm being stimulated by, like out, from the culture. It's like it's all feeds into the work. And it feels like my life is just like activated.
Mhm.
Like I'm
Which,
going to sleep,
yeah.
I'm taking a shower, I'm running, I'm talking to people. It's not just like I'm alive. It's like it's like I'm in
Flow
my art.
state.
I'm like
Yeah.
observing. I'm hyper like aware. It's like a meditative state of like being in the
Super
present
dope.
moment, I think. And
Dude, I'm
especially when I'm looking at art, like I'm like, what can I steal from this or take or like what?
yeah. I'm honestly like, dude, it's funny that you talk about that urgency because I think that any great artist or like any creator feels that like essentially, our time on earth is finite and like if we don't tell the story that needs to be told and we like die before that happens, then there's like some massive loss there in some ways that and like again, it's not like it's even for anyone else necessarily. Like I think there's like maybe an illusion that maybe like 50 or 100 years away, like some kid picks up like a book in an old library and reads it and like changes like a second of their day or something. Something that we've written or drawn or something. I think that's like that's what like the end all be all. But I guess like with your work, it's like that urgency I think is 1000% accurately communicated in there. But I'm wondering like how you stay meditative in these hyper detailed, hyper time intensive works because like dude, like like those things have to take. I mean, I think I saw something they take an ungodly amount of time,
Yeah,
and
you gave me some ratio. Yeah, why don't you
like I just feel like my head would explode when I'm just like I need to get this piece done, and I would just be sitting there just fucking hammering it away. So how do you stay in a meditative state on those pieces while they also take so long for you to make? You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah,
urgency.
I think
Yeah.
we're totally related. I think in a lot of ways I found this process and I'm attracted to it because I feel that sense of urgency.
Mm.
And this is again, I'm going to try to put this into words. There's like a hyper like racing thoughts. Like I got a lot going on in my mind. Again, you can see it in my work, I think. And like you're like there's an urgency to it. And I think a big part of like maturing and finding myself has been like how to control that energy and harness it and use it wisely, like
Yeah.
with care and with purpose. And
Interesting.
when I was just sort of making art like without structure or like kind of the way I kind of growing up was just like I just made so much shit. Like just like blah 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 every day, like
Right.
So what did you change to get to this? So
Right.
when you
I
talk
got to a
about
point. I think kind of what you were saying too is like I'm only alive for a certain amount of time. I have like, what do I really need to say? Like,
Mm.
stop it. Like, what is going on here? So
Yeah.
like finding up this process of like it's so slow, it's so much work. It's like I can put in a year's worth of like all that nonsense and chaos, filter it down into one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally working on the same. I can show you right now because I'm
Yeah.
kind of in my office, but like I'm. This is a piece of paper. Here's my whiteout and my pens here.
Yeah.
I just wait. This is like I'm going on this for like 2 weeks now.
so wait, so you draw and then you white out for each of the
So I draw on it, I scan it, I pull it out, I white out, draw some more, scan it, and like I'm making some pretty dramatic shifts frame to frame on this.
When you
I
create
get a
your
lot.
work,
So
like
I'll just
how do
say
you
this: my work is so much better when it's like distilled like this. And
Yeah.
for me, it's like there's no distraction. I'm working on this one thing every day, as much as possible, until it's done. It could take however long it takes. And then what I found, it's not even less is more. It's more like putting everything into one package and really taking time with it. It's it's like so much more powerful than like an individual frame. And like my work used to look like before I started animating this way, like what one frame of my animation looks like. It was just like I can make these and so it's like I can make these images forever. I can do it over and over again. So it's like find a way to make your work about that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so that was the story I never really kind of finished. But I was painting and teaching and kind of like going on this journey as an artist and being like, I just want to like, I only have one life. I'm going to put everything I can into this one thing. I don't really like finishing an image. I like reworking. I like seeing where it goes. And I think my work is really kind of out of the box because it has that time to like, I can start very like formalized and structured, but after you work on something for like 3 months, 4 months, 5, it's just like, it just becomes itself. And it's like, this thing, it's like, I've aged like a year, but from starting it to ending it. So it's like,
Yeah, that's wild.
and then I always say, like, to me, it just feels like what's like trying to be authentic from the soul. Like, what's more authentic than that? It's like, I spent every day with it for a year. Like, this is what I tell myself too, is because I find my work revealing to myself. Like, I'm surprised I made it. Like, I don't always know
like
where
you
it's
learn
coming
about
from.
yourself
Yeah.
by looking at
And
the
so
work?
when I work on it for a year, I'm just like, this is what you did for a year. Whether you like it, you hate it, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. It's like you just spent a year on that. It's like, what is more you? Like saying a year is a pretty like substantial amount of time in someone's life. It's like this is a true record of who you were, man. Like just accept it and be proud of it. And then I'm gonna keep ripping, but you can cut me off. In this space, talking about like how to promote yourself or market yourself or blah blah blah. It's so hard to make art and promote it. To me, it's like I spent a year on this shit. Like it's not marketing or promoting it. It's like look at this. Like it's such a natural feeling to like put it out there and want it to be seen and put in festivals and screenings and sharing it on social media. And I think it's really valuable and worth a lot when people buy it. Like that's all just like a natural. And then getting a job as a professor, it all kind of came from just like authentically approaching my art and putting a lot of love and time into it, just for myself when no one was asking me to do it.
Yeah, so do you not know where do you not know where the piece is gonna go when you start it? Because essentially, like you said, I mean, that piece captures memories, it captures emotions, it captures feelings on any given day over the course of that year. So essentially, does it just transpire naturally? And then when you start it, do you oftentimes have a vision for it? And then that vision is more or less constantly molding, shifting, and changing underneath the weight of, whatever the fuck is going on in your life at any given time?
Yes, that's
That's
exactly
fucking
what happens.
awesome. That's
So
cool, dude.
what's the first
really,
thing you draw an image, or what's the first sort of step in your process? An idea? Is it just drawing?
well, I literally try to start everything I do. I mean, there are some variations, but I try to start everything I do with a blank piece of paper. So like you're literally
an
seeing
idea, or
yourself
just you sit in front of the paper?
just literally a blank piece of paper, and I'll typically start with like a black dot in the middle.
Yeah.
There's like this is the way I was thinking about it the other day. Actually, it's like imagine writing a guitar solo, like one note a day. You know what I mean? It's
hold on, let me
you
get
start
that
with
back
one
in here.
note. It's one note, whatever. It can go anywhere. Then you
Yeah.
have two notes. Then it's like kind of going somewhere. Then you have three notes. By the time it's like 20 notes in, like it's not just like I'm gonna wing it the next day. It's like it tells you kind of where it wants to go to, right?
Right. It's leading you.
Yeah, and then imagine you do that for a year. You could have the sickest, sweetest, most beautiful, like just guitar solo that's just like, and it's like because you slowed down and did it day by day and let it lead itself naturally, it has an internal logic to it and it references itself. But yeah, that's generally how I go. So the beginning is like all you need is like an initial concept to kind of get into the video,
Right.
and then just kind of let it go from there. And then I do have general vibes, and I think a lot of it's like my work matures as I mature for sure. I talked about this in a lot of interviews, like having a child really affected my work. COVID like affected like big kind of shifts in like lifestyle affect my work. And then things that I'm just into. And I'm always trying to just track my tastes and stuff. And I mean, it's hard to talk about this without talking about specific pieces, but really, like, I just find myself really attracted to certain like poetry or music, or like, again, I see the world as very artistic. Like, there's just a certain vibe. I live in Boston. The seasons are really like specific here.
Yeah.
And I find that
I grew up
really,
in the Northeast.
that
in
really
Boston.
comes into my work a lot. Where like the winter, like I see it in my work. It's dark, man. There's like no sunlight for months. It's cold. Everyone here is like pretty pissed off. And then right now it's like euphoric. And people are out late and it's sunny, and like that plays into my work a lot. And then yeah, I think general mood. And the truth is, like, I think honestly, I'm like more happy and fulfilled as a person over the last 15 years. And I think my work has gotten, I hope it, I mean, it's going to keep evolving, but to me, it's gotten less angry.
which is like a tough transition to make ultimately. Like I have a hugely difficult time drawing anything that's like happy. I think I'm just more predisposed to exploring sadness and grief and like things that have happened in my life that I'm still trying to wrestle with, like, versus that celebration of shit in some ways. So it's
a
like
lot of
it's
art is
really
created out of pain and misery.
yeah,
so
which like I would love to draw something happy at some point, but it just like it's such a daunting prospect, because like it is a massive transition. And also, like, yeah, I don't know, it's how did you find yourself more or less able to explore those feelings adequately after what seems like a really long time kind of living in the grieving, or like reflective sadness kind of thoughts there? Like, was it the birth of the kid, like, how did you find yourself making that transition, and do you find yourself more or less fulfilled by either one specifically?
Good question. I think it's really layered.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still really angry, but I'm angry about different things, I think.
Right. Right.
But this is okay. I do think my work site let's talk about this. Art is not just like a physical object or an image. It makes you feel a certain way. It has a certain effect on a human being. And I think my work specifically, and animation specifically, is very like psychological and like film, and music kind of goes to a deeper part of the brain. And I've just noticed my work just has a really unique effect. It's a really different type of work. And I think people interact with it in a different way than just like illustration or a painting. And so I feel like I used to depict more things, where now I'm thinking more of like the relationship of the work and the viewer.
Yeah.
And the work is sort of like this vehicle. And so really
how would that translate? Well, like, what would you have done in your old style that would look different in this new approach? Is there an easy way to communicate that, or no?
I don't want to buy like this.
Yeah, I get
it.
It's
like I don't want to define it too much. In my mind,
I got it.
My work is a lot cleaner, more fluid, faster, less like. There's a lot of dysmorphia in my early work, like, and I would literally like just like my body and like ripping my head off and like pulling my eyes out. Where now I'm seeing my work as more like making something that goes in here. So it's like less like almost. This and more like this.
More like pulling together. Yeah,
and interesting.
Cool. I think it's I do think it reflects aging. Like, this is a natural progression. Like, when I was 18 to 25, like, I needed the world to know that I was really good, and that don't fuck with me, and like kind of like the way you would look at people. Like, I'm not macho, but like I'm a man. Like, I fucking
testosterone.
Like, I see shit. I know we're not like, feel me, check it out. And I think you see this in young musicians and young actors. And like, as I became a professor and had a kid, and like I got a lot of respect. I don't feel that need to like posture at all. And in my work, I don't feel, I don't feel like my work is happy, honestly, or like lovey-dovey, but I do feel like my work is more like, I'm much more comfortable, like not having to like.
Yeah, when you
it's
start,
like, I really think it's like a punk rocker going from like,
dunk on
look
people. Yeah, when
look
you
how
start, you're
angry.
dunking on people, and once you're established as the MVP, you don't have. There's no need to do that.
Yeah. Well, being really good is like going from the
And
rock
being
show,
humble
like
about it. Yeah,
playing,
supporting others, etc.
yeah, and kind of going like unplugged and like just like a single mic. I mean, like I'm really good just with like black ink and white out with like just like
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm blowing your mind. I'm giving you that spiritual transcendence without even like, it's not too heavy handed or I don't know. But I honestly really love, I have a one-of-one up that the deep end that I think is like super, like what I'm talking about, like really intense, like, more intense than the work I'm working on right now in like that emotional way. I do think, but and I'm also just trying not to get bored or repeat myself. But yeah, I think there was a point where I had my daughter where it was like, I just want to make work that's. I think I've talked this before, but I'll say it here. A lot of my editions are square. They're shorter. They're a lot more graphic, and like those are all influenced by having a kid and thinking about like the way babies see, and that like I don't like to say what my work's about or what I'm trying to do, but like there was a very conscious feeling of like I'm going to make work for my daughter, like, and I'm a human being who was just born.
Yeah.
Like, what is that about? Like fuck all the cultural baggage, fuck all the like again posturing or what I'm trying to say. Like, make work for fresh brain, fresh eyes. Like, what would you do?
That's cool.
And that's why I think that work again. I hope it's like it's almost like print. I really hope that like someone who's like never seen a computer would see that work and just be like moved by it, and that like in 500 years, like you were, that it's still like super relevant and kind of still works. But Dal, you were saying before about someone seeing your work in 100 years. I have this feel. I don't know where this comes from, but I do have this feeling all the time. It's like some grad student is going to do like a paper on me in 300 years, and they're going to like go through frame by frame and like see where I lived, and they're going to really give a shit about all this stuff because there's so much that goes into my work that like no one will ever know about. Or like, it's beyond.
And then the hope is that person gets like a C+ on the paper, and the professor is uninspired by it, and they're just like, and then they become the bitter, insane artist that's just like pissed the fuck off.
That's hilarious.
Yep.
That's really interesting. It was so helpful and interesting to hear about your process and to hear how that resonates with you. When you look at being an artist in NFTs versus being an artist in kind of more traditional art, what do you think are the different challenges for both of you? Like, how do you approach the different markets? What do you think the different opportunities are? And how do you feel as both of you are, like, one of the things I've been, discussing a lot lately is that in the traditional contemporary art market, 100 artists garnered most of the success. And I think at the beginning of NFTs, one of the beautiful things was so many artists were participating. I think we're in an interesting part of the market now where many of the top artists are getting the best prices they've gotten, but there's a lot less sort of to go around. So just generally your thoughts on the traditional, operating in both markets. What are the opportunities and challenges? And then what's changing in the NFT market? Is it similar to the traditional market or getting more similar, or is it its new own thing?
My traditional market was like selling pieces in a park for like $15. So like I think my cumulative, I think we've talked about this, OG, but like,
I love it.
My cumulative, I think art sales and up until NFTs of 15 years of art, I think was $200 or something. So like I can't really like talk on that, but it has been super rad that it's been cool as fuck to see like the trend. So like the digital art space is something that I've loved for a long time, or digital art creating more or less, again, out of necessity, because Jake, like you, like my need to create was so insane that like our apartment just couldn't handle like the burden of my creations at a certain point. It was just like collapsing, and my wife was like, dude, get a fucking iPad. Like you can't be painting shit every single day of the week because we're dying here and nobody wants this shit either. So like that's what it is. So But then it has been cool to bring it back to like traditional like art, or I guess I don't know what just physical art in general, to make that connection and explore. And Jake, you do this so elegantly, exploring it both digitally and physically. I think that there is a different story to tell in either medium, and like so the pieces that I've been doing lately often have a physical component because I don't feel like the story is complete. Again, back to our like legacy point almost, where it's like that story that you're trying to tell it feels incomplete when I do it a certain way, and for certain pieces I feel like it needs to be extended onto a physical medium through words and all that stuff. So I don't know, but I don't know, Jake, I don't know if you've had a different experience in the traditional art world, or if Sotheby's Bar and Grill, or Christie's or anything like that. I don't know.
Yeah, so this has been talked about a lot. I do think the distinction is kind of silly. And when I got in the space, everyone kept talking about trad art. I'm like, what is trad art? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm an artist. I've had work in galleries and museums.
Yeah, it's just
I like right now my NFTs have been in museums and at Christie's. Like, so this whole trad art versus digital art thing, I think, is like really like kind of coming from a place of naivete or something. But I will just say, like I was saying, growing up, I always wanted to be an artist. When you study art, you're hyper aware that like the art world evolves and changes, and especially in the modern world, like it changes a lot. And that like growing up as an artist, you're like, I don't know what the art world's going to look like necessarily when I reach, middle age. But I know it's going to change, and I know it has a lot to do with like getting my work out there, cultural relevancy, and then finding ways to make a living. And so I'll just say, as an experimental animator, like I'm on the fringes of what might be thought of as like the traditional art world, because my work is a non kind of traditional medium. So I've always been in like the animation. Well, first of all, I sold paintings and I had paintings before I started animating. So I sort of played around with that. One reason I got into animating was like the physicality of paintings was really difficult. And living in a big city and painting with oils and shipping them to galleries, and then having a gallery show and not that many people see it. And then when people need to buy your work, they need like a wall in their house that's like 4 feet big for your painting. It's like,
yeah,
it makes it really small. It's just felt really small. And the minute I started working on paper and putting stuff online, it was like, I knew this now 15 years ago. The internet is the future of being an artist. And again, I can't believe more people don't talk about this, but like most painters and sculptors and any trad artist these days, most people are seeing their work on Instagram or Artsy or online anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's all online. It's all digital. And a lot of painters and artists are like experimenting with animation and digital art, and have been, again, like the Photoshop aesthetic has been a part of like painting since the 90s.
Yeah.
We've been dealing with this for a long time.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of critical success in the experimental animation community, like festivals, gallery shows about that, and like museum shows and articles and books and stuff. That world has never had a lot of big money. You're talking about 100 artists that are like making all the money in the trad world. Experimental animation just like never got a piece of that pie. Maybe like William Kentridge, a few people, right? And because they had these, somehow were able to cross over culturally. But for the most part, that's kind of where I landed. So I just want to say, like, my career was at the perfect place for the space when it started.
Right.
I had reached a place where it's like, I'm respected in this community. My work is in shows. My work is valuable art. It's seen as like art. It lives online for free for most people. And really the only way I can make money just making the work I want to make is by licensing it for commercial purposes, like to events and bands, and getting licensing fees from festivals and stuff.
Is that you got a significant income from that?
And,
yeah.
Yeah. And then, so just keeping all the rights to my work, putting it online, and then just getting good licensing deals from it. And then doing commissions. Like I've done a few high profile commissions that paid well, but like, I was like, okay, people like my work. I'm, being a full-time professor is a lot of work on top of being an artist full-time. And then I don't want to do commissions the rest of my life. Like I'm an artist, real artist. Like how do I cross over?
Commissions, I think like we were talking about earlier, I feel like for artists to be told what to do, it's almost the antithesis of the creative process. And so you're creating for somebody else's needs, which you can't articulate. Even if they're telling you words, it's not your experience.
Yeah, it's good.
I think
I will say, like, I'm glad I did those things because a lot of people I meet know my work from like TV and those things. And that's why I did them ultimately then too. It was sort of like I can keep making like, festival quality, like museum quality work, but like if it's not part of the culture, I can't build a community around my work as an artist, like I feel kind of stuck. And then the truth
that's
is
where
sort of like,
NFTs, by the way, it's interesting to hear that. By the way, I think it just got a heat warning issued here too. So in addition to my super hot garage, it's like hot outside. I think that's one of the things I was going to try to get to is like, I think in NFTs, this direct relationship between artist and collector seems much more like available that in channels that aren't solely online, like going through a gallery or a museum. And so I think to me, that's one of the huge opportunities, like to have direct contact with your collectors all the time in a way. Like, look, every day you're communicating, both of you on Twitter and releasing work. And I think that's an incredible like connection as well. That's different. And so I think you're right. Maybe like art is art and digital art is one use of NFTs. That's a utility, but that doesn't mean there wasn't digital art prior or that there wasn't ways to do this. But I do think this market has facilitated collecting in a different way, curating in a different way, connections with the artists in a different way. And that can impact how artists work. And so I know
it's changed my life. Yeah. I mean, I should say that out here. Like, this space is incredible and it's changed my life. And I think it's going to change a lot of artists' lives. And I'm so happy and feel honored to sort of be like someone who can explore this new space and show people what's possible. But yeah, that was sort of the end of my story. Is people have been asking me like, how do I buy your work for a long time? And I was sort of like, I'm not going to make t-shirts. I'm not going to sell DVDs. Like, I'm not going to do that cheesy shit. I'm a real artist. So kind of like, I don't know. I guess you can't. And then a lot of people are like, do a commission for my band. I'll give you like all this money. And it's like, no, I don't want to. And so like when the space was like, oh, finally it's like, it's art. You can buy it. Boom. And like it definitely like the crypto community was a new audience for my work in a lot of ways. But the way I've been seeing it, and it's been happening more or less like this last 2 years, but like my fans who want to buy my work, who will kind of understand this space, like I'm bringing them to crypto. The crypto community like is coming into my world, and like it's all sort of intertwining. And now I have that latest thing with Cosimo de Medici and Avant Art, and it's like it's a physical.
They seem to be doing so great.
Yeah, and it's
I'm looking at what they're doing. It looks like they're doing really cool stuff.
And their collectors are like just normal people who are like a lot of them are gonna get an NFT with this work. Who like it's cool. They got an NFT. It's authentic, and like we know that like they actually got two works of art in a weird way, and like there's some financial gain there. But and then people in the crypto space might value like the NFT honestly more, but they get a cool physical too. And sort of like we're all kind of bringing this together. And like we've had our work like around Art Basel and stuff. Like it's only we all know this, right? It's just the FUD and like the misunderstanding from the mainstream audiences that are like holding us back. But like that's not. They're wrong. They just have to look.
Yeah, I also think ease of use is still like an ease of access.
Yeah.
Like I think.
But the concept that people can buy my work out online, like I'm on Instagram. Like I work at a university. Like I got to say this. Like no hate. People do not hate NFTs. Like they like my work. They get what I'm doing. They think it's awesome. They hate the shit that like we all hate.
Yeah,
like the scams and the stupid bad art.
Yeah,
and the dumb bros or whatever. Like, we're all on the same page.
Copycats. Yeah,
that's why we just keep talking, keep putting out work, keep doing what we're doing. Like, I'm just not bearish at all on like my own work and what it means in this space and where we're going. More Dai's work.
Thanks, dude.
But yeah, like what you were saying too, only 100 artists make it. Like, let's just put it out there. We're not all going to make it.
No,
and not all the art in the space is good, and not all projects are good.
So it's I actually go one step further. Most of it is bad. 99% of people aren't going to make it. Like it might not be, but so I think actually once you approach things like that, which I do think like there's a ton of trash, a ton of people with the wrong, inauthentic stuff, and in a way, I do think the opportunity for many artists, like Dai was saying before NFTs, he sold $200 art, and his pieces are selling crazy, you know, now in a day 80 times that or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful, and I'm with you. And I do think that's the attitude. Like when I started in NFTs, I think it was after like it was right towards the end of the time where every NFT went up and everything was a flip. And I do think like I actually, you know, going back to what we've sort of been discussing, I think there'll be things that happened in quotes again, you could say it's maybe a false fiction, but offline art and physical art where there's the artists who are committed, who are doing authentic, original, recognizable work. I also think you touched on something. One of the beautiful things I'm finding is that you were saying how the flex of simplicity using black and white and dye. I think it's really interesting to me, like when you find authentic work done in a way like, you know, a more simple approach. And so I think what you're seeing now is like people just were all rushing the space, but you are seeing some, you know, Pinder discusses this sometimes in his feed where he's like, well, people, this was something that existed in art already. NFT people are acting like it's new. But I think this merging of the worlds, bringing the experiences, and now being able to recognize what's good work, what's bad work is actually, I think, very good for the space. And seeing, like I said, like, you know, part of what motivated this show was to focus on the artists and collectors who were doing this super cool original stuff that's an example of what the space should be and to sort of lead by example in that way. And so I'm with you 100% that I think like, yeah, let's be realistic. Most projects are shit. Most art isn't going to make it. And in a way, actually, one interesting thing I talk about, I think being able to operate in NFTs when you start without needing to make an income from them is one of the most important things to your potential success. If you are in this space as an artist and you immediately begin to depend on it to eat, you will be forced to do things that will wreck your ecosystem, in my opinion. And so I'd love to hear what you both think of that, because I think a lot of people say, oh, look, once I get in here, I want to quit my job as soon as possible. I've started recommending until it's very clear. You want the freedom as an artist, I think having the freedom to create what you want, which means also the economic freedom, you know. So I think taking all that together, like looking at what artists should do in this space, you know, how they should focus or any advice you'd have for artists, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, that's interesting because I do see that quite a bit, and I think going back to the shitty art thing, Jake, I don't know if you feel this, but like sometimes in maybe you've evolved past this, but sometimes I look at that shitty art in the psychotic shilling and just like the banging the drum and like I want to create things that are as far away as humanly possible of that. So ultimately, like I feel like that helps me drive myself and just be like, look, like you got to create something that is just the polar opposite. Continue, you know, plummeting into your own mind, into the madness, into like something that just is entirely like unrecognizable from that shit. You know, I don't. Do you feel that too? Like looking at some of the stuff. Like I don't
Yeah, I've
mean
been feeling
bad for
that my
anybody.
whole
Like
life. I
specific.
mean, I said
Yeah.
this 20 years ago, but like, um, my it's still true today. When I was like, every everything got super slick and clean and like
Yeah.
3D and shiny and um, when I was in school, in art school, and I was like, I'm gonna make the grittiest, most handmade, raw shit possible, like the antithesis of like all this fancy. And it's like I've always thought it's like spectacle, like avoid just like pure spectacle and find
Hmm.
substance. I'll say this in a kind way. When I look at all the bad art in the world, and especially on Twitter and in the space, it's just a reminder every day of how hard it is to make good art.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it's this
True.
weird thing where like you can study it your whole life,
Yep.
spend all day thinking about it, make it, and it's still like every time it's like, how the fuck do I crack this code? It's so
Yeah.
it's beyond a skill. It's beyond rational thought. And you just see a lot of that like art and you're like, wow, like it's not that I'm trying to do something completely different. It's like I could make art, like art can so easily be it's just like wow, I'm really thankful that like I'm making work that I like feels powerful. And when I see good
Yeah.
work like yours and others in the space, it's like a reminder of like I hope collectors understand this and other people understand this. Like to be an independent artist and just like navigate all this shit and keep your sanity is hard enough. Making really good art is like I think it's
create,
a high level human
it's
functioning.
incredibly,
It's like really
to be able to find a style,
stay in the zone, and be consistent.
stay in a style, repeatedly create against it.
Difficult, and that's why most art sucks because it's so fucking hard. And and there's most artists in this space that I interact with are younger than me and have less experience, and most of the time I just want to be like, yeah, it's really fucking hard. Just like it's so hard.
Yeah.
That's it. You wanted me to remind you, like
I started doing like AI art every day starting last June. I've made like 13,000 images. I've tried Blender. I try all the tools, Procreate to learn. And I think I spend all day in this and talking to artists and so on. I think finding a unique style that's appealable. I think this element you guys have brought up, I've seen it a lot, like doing something that others can do, but doing it in a better, cool, different way. Like I learned this first with tattoos, like looking at 10,000 tattoos, the same thing. You're like, oh my God, this one thing captures it all, but does something new. And so I think like to find that zone and repeatedly create against it and say stuff that's new, not like, yo, we're just repeating that same. And that's why I do think it's such a high standard. And once you start looking at art that way, that's why most of the art, you're like, well, there's only a handful of people who can do this. And it is a bit like, it's hard to say exact, but you can recognize it when you see it.
Yeah, that's it. And Jake, I love that point that you made, because like I don't think that I take enough time to do that, honestly, where it's like, I think the pieces that are so beautiful and that do make you pause, like the things that you create, like I'm trying to think about some other incredible, like Xerox, Coldy, Sprat, there's so many, Matt Cain, Zucker, like the list goes on, but those pieces that like, you truly look at and like, I think that I need to do a better job of like truly cherishing those things, because that is the thing. Like you see those things, I think it's immediately recognizable that they're different, and they could only exist in this world through that person's fingertips, through that person's like, crazed imagination on their perspective, and warped, interpretation of memories and emotions and stuff. So it's just, it is funny. It's like almost like, it is like a spiritual thing, going, it's funny to think about it like this. It's like a spiritual thing going to Twitter, and we're more or less like worshiping at the altar of some of like the greatest fucking artists of our time in some ways, and like I think that
and being
sometimes
able to talk to them and hang with
yeah,
them,
and be able to talk to it's crazy.
That's another
I
cool
think
ass thing.
yeah, I feel like sometimes you're in the slop so much, you're in the fucking shithole so much that it's tough to pull your head out of there and take a breath and realize that like these moments and in these pieces are like transcendent versions of that person. And so it's like, it's really incredible. I thought it was a really interesting point you made about cherishing, because that is the thing. Like these works do need to be cherished in those moments in the day that pull you from whatever it is you're doing, the shit, the mundane shit, or like the crappy, feeling that you're having or something. Those need to be celebrated immensely. So I appreciate that perspective.
And I do. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jake.
Let me just riff on that real fast. As an extension of like a lot of art on the feed is bad or whatever. When you see good stuff, it like really stands out and is moving. And it's like gratitude is happiness. Like it's really important. I try to do this to myself. Like when I hear a new song or I see something new that I really am like, this is special. I try to say to myself, this is special, and like recognize that, and actually, like I was saying before, and think about why is it special to me, and honestly, like what can I take from this as an artist? Because this is like whatever is happening here, I want to feed off of that. The other thing I just want to say is like my experience as a person is like the feed is an extension of the whole world. The whole world sucks. Everything sucks. 99% of people suck. 99% of food sucks. Like the human experience is that there's a lot of sucky things about it, and that art really is like great art is like our salvation. It is like
it's funny you say that, because I like fully agree. I think if you start with the assumption most of it is meaningless, and I sort of jokingly call myself an optimistic nihilist. You don't really matter. Most people don't matter at all. And so once you free yourself, it actually should be the most inspirational thing. Like, because you don't have all these, like, people don't really care all these things you think others care about, and you have the freedom to create. And so I think if you approach the feed in life instead of like hate with the assumption that most of what's coming in, I have to filter out. And my whole job is to find the people and the art in this space or anything in life. Like that's what I spend my whole life doing. There's not many who are going to matter. So spend all your time getting rid of the stuff that doesn't matter. And like you said, I always say, if you're a person who wants to be angry about stuff, there's an infinite amount of stuff where every day you can wake up in the world and be mad about the prison system, about this, about that, race, that. And so I'm with you. Like one of the things, I'm 48, I'm pretty old. And one of the things like I've changed a lot is how I let anything into my life, whether it's how I read news, how I let access in my Twitter feed, who I let around me, what I let in, because that has such a profound impact on every aspect of your life. And once I did that, it changed, in addition to having kids, like you said, Jake, and some other big life events. And it's changed my whole kind of approach to life. And it actually allows you to be better and not as mad and so on. And just be like, yo, I don't do that. Like, no, I don't mess with that. No, I don't. Just being able to say no and understand like what you shouldn't spend time on is actually the bigger determinant to success. And then only saying yes. Like nowadays, I used to buy a ton of shit, when I first started. Now I'm only focused on, only want to buy stuff from artists where the work I think will matter and where I believe in the artist, because the artist ultimately, like the work itself matters, but the artist is ultimately what you are partnering with when you're an art collector, in my opinion.
I agree. I'll say this too. Yeah, like we're far enough now in the space, which this whole experience for me, like I dropped my first piece like almost 2 years ago exactly, which is such a short amount of time in my artistic career and my life. And it's all felt just like very new. And like now I'm at the space and like like it's like people have been watching me for every day for 2 years. And like that's a different experience of knowing an artist and understanding their work. Where if like you're one of those people and you buy my piece, of course you're buying me more than the work. Like it's
that's when I got into crypto.
right?
I used to say the same thing. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to trust anybody? But what I find is exactly what you said. If you're showing up every day, people can see your wallets. In a way, you can, if you're a good person or doing something cool and authentic, you can move the fastest in this space, because if you're real and people see it every day, like you said, it's only 2 years, but the amount of like interactions people have had with you or die is as if it's like 100 times that. And so I think, interestingly, that's another thing that's good for the space and helping it change is you don't need the same amount of time. If you meet some random person in real life, you don't know if they're telling you the truth. You need a whole bunch of time to let it shake out. Whereas here, if somebody, you've seen them for years and you've watched their wallets and you've seen what's happened when they've had challenges, all that. And so I totally agree. I think it's a huge, exciting and cool part of the space. We're running, actually, we have about 7 or 8 minutes left.
I have a
Jake,
question.
Yeah, bring it, buddy. Let's hear it.
Because it came up earlier. You were saying like you have a really hard time approaching your work, like showing happiness or joy. And so I just want to kind of put this general question out to you. Your work is funny. Your work brings a lot of joy to people.
Yeah.
I think most people, so I've always found your work to be like, I'm from Ohio. Like I get a lot of what you're talking about. And I've always found your work it's like haunts me a little bit. It reminds me of my childhood. A lot of the shitty world that I was trying to escape, or like I never like fit in or understood it. So your work makes me probably like as equally sad as happy, but like your work is very joyous and you're a really funny guy. Do you think of comedy when you're making your work? Like, is it coming from pain, or what are your thoughts about like what you're doing?
Yeah, I really love that take, dude, because like essentially that humor is in every thread, in every brushstroke that I make, because like it is like it becomes a point where, you said the town you were trying to escape, and I think we all have like that collective like hometown that just fucking sucked and it was just awful, and like you spent your weekends drinking Steel Reserves in like a Dunham's parking lot and like watching the snow melt and and it's just like it just fucking blew ass. I mean, I guess I kind of missed doing that thing specifically. It was actually kind of awesome in some ways, but you're dead on there. I think that humor does play such an important part, and I think that I definitely probably misspoke in terms of there are some pieces that I think are like extremely heavy, like the one that VVD just bought. Was like this reckoning with this thing that happened with somebody who had gotten dementia, and so like there are these pieces that are like I think are pretty void of happiness and humor and stuff. But you're dead on. Like I think that many of the pieces have that humor in them to more or less cope with like the unbearability or like the sadness and stuff. So I'm so happy that they make other people happy and laugh too, because like otherwise it's just like it just fucking sucks, like to exist in that like realm. And maybe like talking it through right now, it's funny. It's like this is like a life, or this is like a live therapy session with Jake. But essentially thinking it through, it is really true that I think that like to cope with whatever that sadness is or whatever that thing that I'm going through is like it makes it so easy to make it satire or ridicule or just like or just yeah, make it a funnier take on things, because like I think the pieces would probably not be, I don't think they would be as like I don't think they would be as, what's the word for it, like just as relatable if they were just completely sad, because we all are funny and we all just want to fucking laugh as humans. So like I think that's dead on, dude. I really love that that yeah, that's your interpretation of them,
I
because
love
I
that. So
100%
yeah,
go for it.
coming full circle, it's like that's what good art does. Kind of what your work is
Yeah.
doing. It's not funny or sad. It's everything, man. It's like the human
Yeah.
experience all tied together. And
Yep.
I see this with my students, and we see this a lot of art too, like on the timeline. Just pure sadness is not interesting.
No, it's
And
not.
not really like
That's right.
a good
That's right.
expression.
Yeah.
But like it's like sadness with like a tinge of hopefulness or like regret or something
Yeah.
like that. I'll just say before we run out of time, like I find it super fascinating that you've decided to stay in Indiana, because what your work is about and what it looks like, and that like you've chosen to live there, and like I see that like that embraced. So there's like that genuine love for this
There is.
culture, and
Yeah.
I really think it's special. And talking about like what you drink,
Thanks.
dude, like Mad Dog 2020, a bunch of stuff you posted,
Uh,
I haven't thought about since I was drinking when I was like 13 in someone's backyard in Ohio.
yeah.
And it's like, oh my God. And it takes me back to that weird mix of like unknowing as a young teenage boy, like again, that posturing thing and figuring out who you are.
Yeah.
And just like a lot of sadness in that for me. So yeah, I really appreciate that. But yeah, I think
Thanks, dude.
what I was trying to say in my work too is sort of like I want my work to be intense, but like leave people, like uplift people at the same
Yeah.
time.
Or like you said, I mean, like, and I think that was a beautiful part that you made about your like newest piece. I think is what you said for like, or some of the most recent stuff. And I see this too, where it's not like it's not even really, it's a vessel, right? It's a transportation vessel, more or less, for where that person needs to go in that exact moment in time when they're looking at it. So I found that to just be like such a mind-blowing kind of interpretation and need to communicate, because like that's the thing, they're looking at that piece in a museum, and again, like that exact moment, they've accumulated all those years of whatever happiness, sadness, loss, gain, childbirth, whatever, and in that exact moment it's what they need in order to be able to feel what they need to feel right then. So like that's pretty fucking rad, dude, like having it just be like a straight up vessel into whatever it is, the lazy river that exists in our fucking heads. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's very cool too. And it's like that. Yeah, I hope, like, I think there's some like science to actually what I'm doing, and that one day someone will figure it out. But like saying, like just like eye movement and
Yeah.
contrast and like that, it comforts me.
Yeah.
And it makes my brain feel a certain way. That yeah, I hope I like that too. That I'm building something that yeah, like that when a person, it unlocks something in that person rather than just being like my voice penetrating people.
Imposing. Yeah. Hell yeah.
That's super dope. Well, before we wrap up, anything either you would like to say or share that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, I got to show real fast. I got that print with Avant Art and Cosimo.
Yeah.
It's cool. So like I'm saying too, like it's a physical and the NFT. So it's like attracting different audiences. It's also, I find, a really comforting release mechanism because it's a draw. So you just have to enter the drawing.
Oh, cool.
And then 20 people are going to be picked at random. So all you need
Sweet.
to do is enter your credit card. You can pay with crypto if you're picked, but you just enter your credit card to enter the drawing. The link's on my feed somewhere, or go to Avant Art.
When is it? When is the
July
drawing?
25th is the cutoff.
Okay.
So there's
Sick,
still
dude.
like 10 days. And
Okay.
I kind of feel like we already know it's going to sell out, right? So it's kind of just like as many of my friends who want to get in, like I hope it goes to good homes.
Yeah.
So please
I would love
register for that.
Me too.
Cool. I will
That's
get in there,
super
man.
dope.
Fuck yeah. Well, I just want to say real quick, yeah, thanks to OG for hosting. Obviously, like I feel like stuff like this is so vital. In again the kind of porta potty of NFT Twitter and sometimes just having these conversations that are in depth and like being able to pick the brain of some of these like really fucking incredible artists like OSF last time I was on, and Jake. Obviously, like I'm a fucking huge fan of yours, dude. Like I feel like we could talk for hours on this shit. So a massive thank you to both of you for. Yeah, I don't know, the fucking impromptu therapy session that is that was this thing. This is fun. It's been rad.
Yeah, I'm really super appreciate it. Love being on here, and I love the chance to share with everybody. As Di said, what a wonderful opportunity for everyone to hear about your experience and Di's, and I really appreciate having you on the show and getting to know you better, and really appreciate everyone for listening. And Di, I always love rolling in this with you. So, Jake, thanks again, brother. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in 2 weeks with our next show. Everybody, thanks again. Have a great one. Happy Friday.
Later. Peace.
Bye, guys.
Okay, that was good.